This morning's guest has been in the boxing ring more than 150 times, but he's one of the gentlest guys in the area. Who is he? You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the community room at South Carolina Bank and Trust in Murrells Inlet. We're focused on Christian mission outreach, and we're visiting with its founder and director, Jim McManus. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Greg. Hey, it's great to be with you.
Thank you for coming in, and this is so
we
close
get
to your
together
house.
again.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it seems like we had a 2-year hiatus.
Right.
Obviously, we took about 1.5 years off, and you'd been on the air about a half year before we wrapped up that 3-year run of the show.
Right.
So it's a particular treat. I guess last time we were at the Herald's offices there on the former Air Force Base, and now here, close to your home. You're a hop, skip, and a jump away.
I can walk from home to here. That's right.
Early on a Wednesday morning, it's particularly good to get out.
That's right. That's right.
Early morning's not too tough on you, though, is it?
No, not too bad. Not after you retire, you know. Things change a little bit. You get up early then.
I've heard you talk about retiring for quite a long time.
Yeah,
Jim.
when you're in television, you know, you like to sleep as long as you can. You need that sleep.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So to get out of television, then you can get up early. You got a lot more energy.
Now you were still in TV though, Jim. I mean, you still got your fingers in the pie to a good degree.
We still do a little what they call consulting. You know, if I have real terrible problems, they'll call me every now and again. Most of it is by telephone, you know. We don't have to do a lot of traveling because getting too old for that, you know. But anyway, hey, it's a beautiful life. I don't want to go back to it, start over again, but you know. Right. But I know you've had some great experiences in TV, and you did such a tremendous job with TV 43.
TV 43, WGSE. You know, I wanted to ask you, Jim, and we'll talk about that for a second. Did you ever know what the call letters stood for?
Don't know. Ask 1,000 times, but never did find out whether it had any significance or not.
Yeah, someone had talked about God's Son eternally.
Really?
Of course, you've heard that.
Yeah.
The Grand Strand everywhere, or maybe I mean, I'm not sure.
If you get a good one, hold on to it. That's right.
I'm going to stick with God's Son eternally.
That's right.
I think
good.
Reverend Thompson would have liked to have stuck it out with that. And of course, as you know, the excitement for me, almost every day I'm in my office looking up on my wall and seeing a shot of the two of us together back in February. No, not at all. That was such a great shot in February of '96, even before closing on. And of course, both of our lives have changed since then. I'm no longer in the TV business in that regard, and and you and I, neither of us have that direct relationship with Fox 43 anymore. It's so funny.
I miss it, but like I was telling them earlier, sort of like a hole in the head, because you know the challenges in TV and radio, and you get involved in the media, but let me tell you got to work. You know this. You
were doing live broadcasting every single night. Was it more than every single night? Was it during the day or just principally?
We did some days. We did nights. You know, over the years, we've done about every conceivable kind of live broadcasting there is.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if networks had to do what we used to do, doing a live production, say, doing a 60-minute program, and then having to do your live commercials to the split second on the air, ad lib, believe me, it's challenging.
You know, you think about folks in this market who helped get their start. Martha Hunt, who's now on WBTW.
Oh, yeah.
Nicole Boone, who's now on WBTW, both in their former lives, former broadcast lives, having gotten a start here on TV 43. And I try to think about folks, even John Charles, you know, who doing the, and Asbury Williams, who were doing the medical pieces on the Nightline for such a long time there. It's amazing to keep those images of those guys from when they were on TV 43 on Nightline. Yeah,
you got to have a start somewhere, Greg, and you know it's extremely difficult to go to ABC, NBC, or CBS and say, "Hey, I want a job in television." Right. A quick thought. You might not remember the name of Sam Weich. Sam Weich was coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, took them to the Super Bowl. Prior to that, Sam came to me in Greenville, South Carolina, and said, "Jim, hey, you don't know me, but says I know you." He had seen me on television. He says, "I want to get in television." He says, "And I want to talk to you." He didn't want anybody to know he was coming to me and saying, "Hey, Jim, help me to get in TV." So he came to me, Greg, and said, "Look, if you anything you can do to help me to get started in TV," he says, because I want to be an announcer, an analyst, or commentator on one of the networks. He said, but you got to have a start. So I gave him a job as a sports announcer in Greenville, South Carolina. Later promoted him to sports director.
Really?
Later he went to, I believe it was San Diego, as a quarterback coach. They went to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. Then he was promoted to the head coach up at Cincinnati Bengals. They went to the Super Bowl while he was there. Later he went to Tampa Bay. He was coach there. But anyway, it was about 12, it seems like 12 or 13 years, I called my wife, Jan, hey Jan, come here just a minute. What do you want? She says, I'm in the kitchen cooking. Come here a minute, Jan. So she came in. I said, you see this guy on television?
Right.
Sam White. I said, he's a news commentator on CBS. I said, it took him 12 years to get there after he started out with us as just an announcer.
That's amazing.
So, you know, a goal, having a goal, knowing where you're going.
Right, right.
And Sam lost his voice, and he's now coaching in Pickens, South Carolina with a high school, but he wants to get back into the network business where he can reach his years of retirement, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway.
You said he lost his voice, Jim.
Yeah.
I mean, to a great degree.
They severed one of his, he had an operation, I think, of some kind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Severed one of his vocal cords or something, but it's coming back. But anyway, the point you were making about Martha and some of these other individuals that started out, you know, at 43
Sure.
and gone on to bigger things. Sam went to the network. So, you know, it's a...
That's fascinating, and to have played a part in that, I'm sure is a very uplifting feeling for you.
I don't know that I played a part.
Oh, well, yeah,
we gave
him that job. You know, we've got you know, Pete Sealer, our the Florence sales manager of Fox 43,
sure.
who's now doing some consulting work, helping me out on a number of ventures. He, of course, had interestingly had a guy working for him, a name you may be familiar with, Paul Crouch, for many years, and then unfortunately, Paul got a little. He was espousing too much. It was on a country music station there in South Dakota, and Pete actually had to fire him. And of course, Paul went on to do great things with Trinity Broadcasting and otherwise. But it's amazing, you know, as folks get started in the different trials and tribulations they have on air or wherever they are.
Sure, you know, while we were in Greenville, South Carolina, Jim Baker and Tammy Baker, they came there, wanted to start their ministry.
Sure.
There at our operation.
Did they really? On WGGS?
Yeah, and I worked with Jim and Tammy. But anyway, their objectives and their goals weren't the same as ours.
Right.
And he went on to Charlotte. And incidentally, his two top production men, and Lucky Dog might want to hire them, but anyway, Dale Hill and I'll think of his name, Sam Orander.
Right.
Both of these two individuals were the people that did all his production, Jim Baker's. I trained them.
You're kidding, at WGGS?
Yeah.
He came down to try to get on GGS, and when he took off, he took them with him.
Yeah, he went to California with Paul Crouch. Started, they started PTL out there. Jim was the president, and then he got put out. And all he got was he came back to us, and all he had was a tape. He said, I got one tape left anyway. But he came back to 16 there in Greenville, and at which time Dale Hill, who was my production manager, Dale went with him and said, look, Jim, if you'll release me, I want to go to Charlotte with Jim Baker and Tammy to start the program there. So he did. And then later he hired my next production manager that I'd trained, Sam Orander, and Sam went with him. And later came back and hired my chief engineer. So we trained all of his top people.
That's hilarious, Jim. And speaking of that, a lot of Jims in there. Jimmy Thompson.
That's right.
Of course, Reverend Thompson, Jim Baker, and Jim McManus. That's an interesting coincidence there. And, of course, you've got ties not only to Greenville, South Carolina, but didn't you spend a good bit of your life in the Greenville, North Carolina area?
We had a radio station there, and we had our Christian mission outreach there for a number of years. We sure did. And we had a couple of other radio stations, and we were involved. I was the president of East Coast Media, and we did our missions work there. And then we got into missions work back in 1982, Greg. Of course, I'd done missions work for many, many years, but we started Christian mission outreach in 1982.
Is that right? I don't think I knew it was 25 years old
25 years this year.
Y'all are selling. You do a little add-on to
it's just about as old as you are, Greg.
Well, it's got a couple of years to catch up there. But to think about that, Jim, 25 years this year. I did not know that.
It's a long time.
I should be asking questions about what are we doing for the 25th year anniversary to think about.
Yeah, what would be good? You're a great
We're going to have to. talk to Donald and Sherry and come up with some good ideas of ways to highlight that, because that is a big milestone.
It's
You know, all
certainly
the
a
efforts
milestone,
that you and Jan have put in, and of course all the other folks that have been actively involved with Christian Mission
We
Outreach
thank the
over
Lord
years.
for that, Greg. We sure do. People like you, Greg. A lot of people don't know what all of the many things that you've done for the community.
No,
and I
no,
want
no.
to
Let's
thank
not
you.
talk about that. That's very kind. We want to talk instead about the many, many things the Christian Mission Outreach is doing on a daily basis for viewers who need to get off to school or off to work right now. What's the best number if someone wanted to call in and learn more about Christian Mission Outreach and everything you all are doing in the community?
They can give us a call at our operation, 293-2411. We're listed in the telephone directory, Christian
Okay.
Mission Outreach.
And that's
293-2411.
and y'all's offices are very close to the former back gate of
Really,
the Air
yeah.
Force Base. That's 843-293-2411, 2411. That's great. Again, it's just for folks that need to take off. Of course, we talk about 843 because you've got folks all over the PD in southeastern North Carolina and other parts of North Carolina that are still actively committing dollars to enable y'all's mission to grow and sustain its strength in the area.
We do most of our work here in the Grand Strand area,
Right.
of course, Greg, Horry and Georgetown counties. And we have outreaches in North Carolina.
Right.
We still have outreaches in the eastern North Carolina area and in Maryland and in Atlanta, you know. And so we still do a lot of mission work going outside of our area here. However, we're concentrating here
Right
on the
here.
Grand Strand.
Sure. Well, I remember about in the late 90s, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, a big group that was coming together for a night you all had at Dixie Stampede.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to say a lot of those folks were coming in from Robeson County.
Really, yeah.
Robeson,
That's
Scotland,
right.
Columbus County. You had a big busload coming in for an event you all had put on and gotten Dixie Stampede, I remember, to donate. And, of course, some things that you do that are not just related to Christian Mission Outreach, but just relating to helping others in other areas as well.
This is true, Greg. You know, Jesus taught his disciples, and a disciple is a follower of Christ. So I've been a follower of Christ for many, many years. And so he said, if you'll do these things, you know, feed the hungry, clothe the naked and the needy, minister to the fatherless and the widows in their sickness, take care of them, and visit those that are in prison. We've been doing this for 25 years. Now, I said, you know, and I know I've been in television and radio for many, many years.
More years than that, yeah.
That's been the way that, you know, we made our living. And while we were doing that, we've had other businesses we've run on the side, you know, like yourself.
Sure.
You're not only involved in one or two businesses, but many. And so our objective and our goal now is to be able to help people as Christ taught his disciples. And there are many ways you can do this. Jan and I, of course, you know my wife, Jan.
Yeah, please, share with
And
viewers. Jan is...
Jan and I, we still have a prison ministry after 25 years. This past Saturday, we were in Bennettsville at the prison there. And it's something that we just feel that we are called to do, you know.
What prompted that call, Jim? I mean, what...
Well, it was just in the book of Matthew and the Bible, these are the things Jesus said. He said, if you'll do these things, he says, you'll be my followers. These are the things I want you to do.
I remember
so
you all
this
have
is- yeah.
been doing the prison ministry for a long time. What
Yeah.
all's involved in that, Jim, and how deep do you all get in? I mean, is that just the extent of that? Please share with the viewers.
Well, it's going into the prisons, you know, ministering one-on-one, or sometimes we'll minister to a bull ring, or sometimes you'll minister to a group. You know, it varies according to the area that you're ministering in. And it's all just biblical teachings, you know. It says I was in prison, and you visited me, or you visited me not. And so this is just something we feel like we want to do, is to visit those that are in prison that we know, or visit if you've ever been to a prison, which you've not, if you go, make sure you're on the outside of the cell. But when you go, you'll find many of these people, they never have a visitor. They never have anybody to come to see them. We were in prison this past Saturday, and we ran into two people from here, that from the Myrtle Beach area, and they say there's nothing in the world compares to, say, getting a letter. You know, it's such a highlight. And then for somebody to visit, it's extremely special. And I've heard that, you know, if you plan to go to see someone and they know you're coming, and you don't get there, it's the biggest letdown in their life, you know.
Wow.
So you can imagine, you know, it's sort of like the nursing homes. Very few visitors, very few people on the outside that go and visit and and you know, make them feel good.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to visit a friend in prison, and I didn't, and I'm feeling even worse about it now. I'm glad you mentioned that. Just something came up that I couldn't get out there that day, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that sure drives a stake in. I mean, but that's very important to think about as you reflect on that. And I'm sure getting letters, because so little things, an attachment
little, but
to the
it's
outside,
so important, you know.
an attachment to their former surroundings, and to bring them back to where they were. That's very important.
And Greg, you being involved in attorney's work, you know, law work, and your dad being a judge and an attorney, you know that there's a lot of people. It's not just the lowly people that go to prison.
Oh no,
there's a lot of big names, a lot of people from up in Washington that go to prison too. You know,
we had a guest on the show recently who
had
gotten out of prison not too long ago.
So it's extremely important to say, hey, we're not forgetting these people.
Very definitely. And rehabilitation is such an issue. You know, Sheriff Thompson was with us week before last talking about the sex offender registry and tracking program that the Sheriff's Office kicked off in Horry County. It was fascinating. Obviously, you think about rehabilitation, which is such a critical issue.
Yes, it is.
And something that has to come into play, particularly when recidivism is as high as it is in certain segments. So surely rehabilitation is a critical issue. We didn't get here to talk about that and to get you in at 7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. More importantly, just break down a little bit about Christian Mission Outreach and how y'all got founded 25 years ago in Greenville. That was in Greenville, North Carolina. Is that right?
We had been doing missions work. However, that was when we officially started, and we started in that area, helping people that were in need.
Right.
Saw so many people that were going through hard times, and we started out helping people, just, you know, in a small organization. Then we finally grew to the point to where we went into other states. We've been into other countries with our mission work. We've sent many different things into areas like New Orleans, you know, and Florida, and the devastation that they've had. And we continue daily here to pass out food and clothing and the necessities, you know. And we furniture, our appliances, you know. We don't have a large... Greg, one of the things you said in our 25th year, and you can help us, find us some property.
Oh, yeah.
Find us a bigger property.
You're thinking about a new location. Well, I love y'all's location. You've been there, I know, as long as I've been in the area, and have been over there a number of times. Obviously, not as many times as I should have been there. No, not as many times as I should have been, because I think when folks get in there, they see the import, they see folks manning the phone, and obviously constantly getting the word out to try to bring donations in so that y'all can continue to supply at the levels you do. But you've got a ton of stuff in there. I mean, a lot that's really packed in there.
My gosh. I was counting the other day. I said, well, we've got about 40 or 50 boxes of food here that need to be opened and stacked up, and people going, you know, it's a real blessing. It's, you know, at the end of the day, I work long hours. I've retired a long time ago, you know this. But at the end of the day, when you're tired, you're worn out, you're weary in your natural physical body, but you say, man, there's somebody that I helped today that really lifted me up, and boy, you feel good down in here.
Oh, yeah.
You know this, Greg. You know what it is to feel good when you reach down to somebody who's very low and lifted them up. And, you know, I've been in places before. I went into a business one day and saw this lady, nice secretarial area, doctor's office. She said, Reverend McManus, excuse me just a moment. Called me aside. She says, I want to thank you for helping me. Said, I believe it was about 2 years early. She said, I came, we didn't have food. We're going bankrupt in our business. Dressed, you know, nicely. But I says, you know, you forget about these things. You never know who you're going to be helping. You never know who's going to be going. Except for the grace of God, it could be me. It could be any of us. I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of days ago. He said, Jim, he says, hey, I want to get over to see you soon. He says, you know, one day, he says, I'm a millionaire. He says, one day, I'm like a pauper. And he's bigger than a millionaire. But he says, one day I come in, he says, I don't have anything. But, you know, you never know.
It does happen that way.
Except for the grace of God.
You can easily lose it all. And I think it's the bigger you get oftentimes. Clearly the harder the fall, but at the same time, the ease of it coming and going.
That's right.
The ease of it coming and going. You know, Jim, you mentioned something when you spoke of the woman there, when she called you out as Reverend McManus. Of course, I think about you as Jim, but a lot of folks do. You're still doing pastoral care down.
Yeah.
Am I correct? Down in Georgetown.
Yeah, we pastored down there now. They call me down. You know, I've done pastoring work over the years, and of course, like I say, I've always been in the media for the past 45, 50 years, really.
Sure.
And prior to that, a teacher, and I got my education. In,
we haven't even touched on your boxing. We've only got about 5 minutes, but of course, Christian Mission Outreach is. I think we said before starting filming, you had actually been in 150 fights, Jim, or more.
Yeah, that was one phase of my life. My dad was a professional boxing promoter. 5 boys in the family. 5 boys in the family, and by the time I was 5 years of age, I'll never forget 5 or 5.5. I can remember they laced gloves on my hands to box this little boy.
No.
And he just beat the mud out of it. I said, never again. But Daddy says, next day you'll put them back on.
Oh, yeah.
Daddy had his own training gym, you know, and
right.
Trained us. And the entire...
Is that addictive, Jim? Just smashing somebody?
Yeah.
I mean, what's... of course, you've got gloves on, and so you can't really hurt yourself.
Yeah, we wear gloves now.
Right.
You know, you see some of these things on TV where they don't even have gloves on.
I can't imagine, yeah.
Covering the knuckles. But anyway... You get into a lifestyle of aggressiveness, pushy, dominant, overbearing,
right,
demanding, and this type of thing for while you're boxing, because that's what you're taught.
Sure.
And then when I became a Christian, when I dedicated my life to serving God, you have to learn a different way of life. You know, you learn to love. Jesus says this is the greatest, to love your fellow man.
It almost would be, not to say there's not such thing as a Christian boxer, but it would almost be difficult to be a boxer and be in the pulp out of somebody.
It is, and that was one of the most difficult things in my latter years of boxing. That was one of the most difficult things for me, is to really try to hurt somebody.
To really try to hurt somebody.
In the ring, I mean, you want to win, and you want to win by a knockout, but you don't want to hurt somebody.
Right. And that is a very good point, Jim. We can almost wrap on that. We got a couple of minutes, but of course, your pastoral care down in Georgetown, and you say we, you mean you and Jan? Do you all do that together?
Jan, I was telling somebody earlier about, how do you make a marriage last for 47 years and have a successful marriage, and mine is.
Yeah.
I says, you do everything your wife tells you to do.
No, you marry Jan McManus, and you do everything your wife tells you to do.
I married her young, trying to teach her up right,
Right.
So she took over, and she tells me what to do.
She does, absolutely.
She's a great lady.
She's an amazing woman. We miss seeing Jan more often, and of course, Emma Claire misses seeing her. We loved seeing her the middle part of this summer when Jimmy and Joanne Thompson were down. And of course, we got to see Jan and her sister and y'all as y'all were heading out one night to J. Edwards or somewhere, and it's great when you think about her ability to really reach out and touch so many folks.
She has one of the biggest hearts of any individual I've ever known.
She does.
Really.
And she's touched a lot of folks, Jim. Do you miss being on TV every day?
Greg, I really don't, because I'm so involved in what I'm doing. I love every instant of everything. Actually, somebody called one day, and I answered the phone. They said, yeah, could I speak to somebody in charge of this? I said, well, I don't know who would be in charge of that. He said, well, it's janitorial supply. I said, well, you're talking to the right guy. I said, I just got through cleaning the latrine, But, and what I'm doing now, I can remember back in the days when I was on television, and had a big audience, and you ministered to people on the air, you do whatever you're going to be doing on the air, and you feel, it gives you a feeling of, hey, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
And then to come down to the point where you go back and you fill boxes. I filled about 4 or 5 boxes of food today before I left the office.
Mm-hmm.
And to fill those boxes, and then I went up front, and there was a older gentleman standing there getting food. He said, well, I can't stay too long. I got 2 little kids outside that I'm babysitting, grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
You see people like that, and it gives you a feeling that you don't get from many of the, I'd had some pretty lofty positions in the media, pretty good, challenging, but pretty good position. But never had the feeling deep down in my heart that I get from taking a box of food up and giving it to somebody, So I do the entire gamut of whatever need to be done, I do, and feel good about it.
I know you do, Jim. It shows. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
I thought we had about a half-hour program.
We do. It's over. My Lord, the time blew. Forgive me.
Greg,
I haven't even touched on half the questions we tried to prepare to get ready for this morning, but
Sherry told me to come prepared to dance and sing, and I didn't get to do
Yes,
either.
no, you didn't. That's right. The community room here at SCB&T isn't situated for it. We'll have a talk with Tommy about that. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Jim McManus coming up next. We got to hear him talk about the secret to a successful marriage for 47 years to his amazing wife, Jan. We did not get to hear him talk about being a paratrooper. We got to hear him talk about founding Christian Mission Outreach 25 years ago. That's a silver anniversary this year. Wow. 2007, a silver anniversary. We didn't get to hear him talk about his 2 children and his 2 grandchildren and their involvement in the mission work. There's so much that happens with Jim and Jan McManus. We got to hear him talk about being a reverend in his pastoral care down there in Georgetown. Give him a call. The phone number's simple. The mission is very clear, and you'll see it when you stop by to visit their office, 843-293-2411. Say it. You can write it down now. You can even go pick up the phone, leave a message if Jim's not there at 7:30. That's 843-293-2411, Christian Mission Outreach.